This is I don't know if it's a production, but this is a presentation, there we go, with ECIS and with Lausanne American School with our educational research division here. With ECIS, we have a special interest group called Research Informed Schools. And this is part of the offerings that we started doing this year with that group. Christian, who's going to do some introductions here today, is a former visiting scholar. He came and stayed with us for a while here at LAS and did a few different projects on campus. He's also a former student at Moreland University, and there's a nice connection there because both Steve and I also work at Moreland University. There's a nice connection here with visiting scholars because Juan Ho was just recently a visiting scholar here on campus. Steve and T have lots of experience there, and I'll turn it over to Christian for the official introductions.
Thank you, Paul.
Hi. Hello, everybody. I'm excited to be here to talk about, to introduce people, Dr. Carver and T. Carver, to talk about the impact of educational research on how that can transform schools. Dr. Steven Carber has been training teachers for about 2 decades, and he's written 3 books on international education. He has also developed IB curriculum guides that help IB teachers think about instruction. Ty Carber currently works at the American School of Madrid, where she's an instructional coach. She has a master's in educational development from Columbia University. I suppose that's Teachers College there. And she's an adjunct at Endicott, where she teaches courses in technology, curriculum, and research methods. She's also been involved with teaching training programs in Brussels. And she, as I mentioned, now she's in Madrid. They're both visiting scholars at LAS for the 2nd time, I believe. And then they're going to talk to us about the impact of educational research as a form of professional development. So I'll pass it over to Steven and T.
Well, yes, thank you, Christian, and thank you to ECIS for hosting this event. Thank you to Lausanne American School for hosting us as visiting scholars. And for those of you who are joining in, thank you very much. So I wanted to start before we say anything with a picture. If I could get up here. There we go. So a little think, see, and wonder exercise. When you look at that picture, what do you see? What do you think about it? What does it make you wonder? We're a small group, so we can just speak without having to raise hand or anything. What do you think? See, wonder.
I see curiosity, perhaps.
Yeah.
Exploring. It could be a learning activity, or it could be just informal exploration, but they're happy, so it looks like they're having a good time, whatever they're doing.
Yeah.
I see the face of satisfaction. So they have just found something interesting from them. I don't know, maybe the thing in the middle, snow, salt. I don't know.
For sure. What is that thing in the middle? What is that colored powder? Anyone else?
I suppose I do wonder the impact that this has on, if it's related to school, how is this impacting learning and outcomes in a way that, that I could use to convince a school administrator to do this kind of things.
Excellent segue into something in 1 minute. So I'll tell you what these kids are doing first. This is a photo from the 1990s at the International School of Amsterdam, taken by a former colleague of mine named Todd Spedding. I wasn't actually at Amsterdam, but we did the same activity later in Carmel Valley, another side of the world. But 2 fifth-grade classes are inventing a culture in secrecy. So they're inventing costumes, dances, maybe a language, Paul. There's a connection to Paul's work in inventing languages. Beliefs about death and burial perhaps, pottery, artifacts, shards of artwork. And they were then to bury those artifacts in the ground in secrecy without the other fifth grade class knowing what their peers had done. Then the classes switch and they dig up each other's archaeological sites to learn the habits of mind of an archaeologist, to learn to hypothesize, hopefully, like an archaeologist, to ask questions and use limited data to come up with hypotheses, these kinds of things. So thank you for all of your thoughts about what could be going on here. Why did I think to start a presentation on educational research with this slide? Well, and here's a link to what Juan just said. I often taught, can you help me advance the slide there? We're getting the little clicking sound. I think we have to exit our full screen share. So I often started research methods classes like this. And so you think about where would we like to start a discussion about educational research? Do we want to start here, which is where my thinking is nowadays, or do we want to start here? Sometimes it's easier to figure out our careers when we look back on our careers. So for 17 years, we worked like this, and there was a lot of fear and anxiety around this class called research methods. So where I am today in my thinking around this is do cool things in your classroom. Do cool things in your classroom and document how it went. That might be the starting point. So the course called Innovative Practices that we used to include in this program that was here in Lausanne is actually paired perfectly with research methods. We just don't know it. One of my mentors in my early days of teaching said one of the most inspiring quotes to me. He said, "Teach in such a way that your students wake up in the morning feeling like they just can't wait to get to your class because of all the cool things they're going to get to do. Teach in such a way that they just can't wait to wake up and get to school because of all the cool stuff that they're going to get to do." Now, that is a provoking thought in my mind because I'm so aware of how many times I don't accomplish that. We don't accomplish that, but sometimes we do. So try out cool things a little more often. We've got a example here from T's setting, which is the American School of Madrid. Now, I have a bunch of other vignettes, but they're all from Lausanne American School. So we will save those for another time, or Paul can tell us about some of what's going on here at the end. But this is a hotshot music teacher at the American School of Madrid named Jonathan. And our children study with him, and they just love this teacher. And he did an action research project, and he's speaking here about how it informed his professional development. There may be a delay here as we bring this up. It did work earlier, and if it doesn't work, we'll just tell you about it. We can try one more time and see if this will work in non-full screen mode. Any guesses? So I'm going to exit and I'm going to click on it once more like this, and we'll see if that works. And if not, we'll tell you about it. There we go.
Jonathan Hunt. I'm one of the music specialists here at the American School of Madrid. Happy to talk to you a little bit about professional development and action research. When I first got into action research, I thought wait, what on earth is this? I actually got put into a committee talking about action research and innovation, and I had to Google it because I don't even know what this is. And it seemed really intimidating at first. And through a little more experience and understanding, I realized that action research is just documenting what all good teachers are already doing. In our classrooms, we are presented with problems daily in regards to student learning and in sharpening our skills as an educator. And what we do with action research is just those strategies that we apply. Any good teacher's already doing it. And when you apply those strategies to your instruction, you're just documenting it with data and then taking some time to reflect on the data and seeing where the change took part in your student learning. Because I think you present material every year. It might be the same material, but it's different for different groups of kids and different challenges that those students might have. So within action research, you're looking at what strategies am I applying? What am I doing to increase student retention or student understanding? And I am documenting it along the way with some data. So by the end of it, you can say anecdotally, normally you would just use an anecdote. Oh, this worked because this kid had this happen and this kid had that happen, and I have a story behind it. But when you have the numbers to prove that these are the gains that were made from this group of students and from the beginning until the end. The study that I did last year was a songwriting unit that we took part in here, where we're having all of our students write their own pieces in GarageBand. And we were interested in how their confidence about their creativity changed over the course of the project. Because I know anecdotally that kids feel more confident when they have some time and experience creating, then they feel more confident creating. They feel more confident in their creative abilities because they have a base of knowledge to rely on. But as the data would show, this became actually quite difficult to measure, because really the only way to do it was within a survey. So we surveyed the students before the project, how they felt about their own creativity, and then again afterwards, how they felt about their creativity. There are different ways you can go about collecting data. I think in some subjects, it's much easier to collect data. And in those subjects, the action research is even easier because you already have the data, especially if you're doing a pre-test and a post-test on a unit, the data is there. And so then it's more taking the time to reflect and write about it is where the action research project comes in. So don't be intimidated when somebody says action research, because it is just applying data towards what you're looking at in regards to innovative or different strategies to increase student retention and student knowledge.
All right, over to T.
Yeah, so as Jonathan mentioned, the action research is not necessarily an extra thing about what you've been doing in the classroom. It's more about like some innovation that you would like to try out, and then simply documenting any change in learning or attitude. So like at American School of Madrid, somebody like Jonathan, who was we call it novice action researcher last year, now he's becoming one of the like action research learning partner, where he has opportunity to coach other teachers in action research journey. So it's more like an educational research really transform the culture of innovation at our school. And so we come up as something like a small chart about like, when you want to try out something in your classroom, you can describe like the current state of your class, or like some innovation that you would like to try out. And then you think about the purpose of your study, who will be enrolled in the process. Are you going to teach with other teachers? What class are you going to try out that innovative idea? What strategy, innovation, or intervention did you choose and why? So that is like, you describe the class and the status right now, and you choose a strategy or some innovative idea that you would like to try out. And then you document the data, like what's going on in the classroom, and then what's the next step. So I would like to share with you, this is one of my favorite action research that I did a while ago. It's about like taking the students to craft village trees in Vietnam and measure how they improve their empathy. So the third grade students in a very wealthy school, they were not so aware of what's going on in the struggling neighborhoods in Vietnam. And then we kind of think of the idea like, how do we have them to, to be aware more about the struggling neighborhood and how we help them to improve their empathy. So we created a project by taking them to craft villages and learn how people make noodle, make mat, or do the like blacksmith. And then after that, we measure their empathy. So like I describe the status of the class right now, and then I chose the strategy, and then after that, we had a small survey and interview. So like one of the students said to us, like, I used to think making noodles is very easy, and now I think it's a hardworking job. So next time, if I can't finish my noodles, I will not throw out the leftovers, and I will save them. So it's like, it's really powerful in the way that we can see through trying out new innovative idea, how that impact the students' learning. I think now it's your turn to.
Yes, but I'll just paste a link for what we don't necessarily have time to get to, and you can look at this later if it'll paste into the chat. Can you work on that for me in a moment?
Yeah.
So we're hoping that we can use this session in part as an incubator for ideas that you could take into your setting. So something that you would like to try out in your classroom, in your workplace. And T has created this QR code. If you're with a cell phone at the moment, you can scan it and it'll take you to another location that perhaps T can share on the screen too. And we're just interested, what are you thinking? Whether you're an administrator or a university instructor, what is some innovative thing that you've been thinking of trying out? And let's pop it in there. We'll give you a couple of minutes and then we'll transition to discussion, I think.
Sure. You have probably 3 minutes to
Sure.
do that. So you can just click on your QR code.
If it doesn't work, you're welcome to type it in the chat.
It's working perfectly, Steven.
Okay.
Right.
Grayless or grayless learning. That's really nice.
Even if it's just a fragment of an idea.
Mm. Mm. That's a really good one. Any comments on that?
Yeah, take a few moments if you wish to finish up a sentence. So T and I have unique slants on things like research questions. I'll tell you a template for a research question, and then she'll tell you hers, which is different. When I taught research methods all those years, I would almost mandate that the students use the following phrase: what happens to blank as measured by blank when blank? And the reason I liked that as a research methods teacher, the what happens to blank, what happens to fourth graders' multiplication skills, that was the dependent variable. And as measured by blank, clarified what are we using to collect data? How are we measuring improvement in multiplication? And then the when part was where you would put this stuff. The when was the innovation, the intervention, the new thing that you were trying out, maybe in comparison to a control group, a comparison group that didn't do it. So you could take this phrase and plug it into what happens to blank as measured by blank when blank. But in the spirit of this presentation, which is more like do cool things and document how it went, I think T's question template might be an even better one. So over.
Yeah, I will try to see if I can check. So like in our contest, we actually try out both. At the beginning last year, we try out something like Steve said, and it somehow it's a little bit too research or too
Clinical.
academic, like clinical. So we came up with something like a little bit more user friendly in a way. It's also have a independent variables and dependent variables, and then also like the target group in the question, but it's going in a different way. So like, how does your innovation or your innovative idea influence still knowledge dispositions of the target group? So an example would be like, how does small group instruction influence reading skill of sixth graders? Or one of some innovative idea you just posted is like, how does theme-based literacy class influence so and so, like, you know, like influence the understanding about the theme or influence the joy of reading of like middle school graders or something like that. So it's more a little bit easier to write. So if you would like to try out, you can post your research question in the chat box, or we can transit to the discussion.
Yeah, we're about 20 minutes in, so we can definitely transition to just talking about this.
Yeah, so maybe I stop sharing so that we can, yeah.
Paul, do you have thoughts on how we launch into this portion of the gathering?
Yeah, I think if Christian, if you want to facilitate, but it's really quite easy. Like if you have comments, throw them out there and let's just see where the discussion goes.
Yes, I think we're a sufficiently small group that we can just jump in whenever we want to. I suppose the first question that comes to mind to me has to do with the fact that, you know, we discussed empathy, creative confidence, but often, and especially at higher levels of schooling, there's a lot more content that needs to be taught, right? So for example, the curriculum for an IB biology or an IB chemistry course is quite extensive, and often hear from teachers that they don't have time to do cool things because they have to, you know, cover all this material. Now I know at LAS, there's a biology teacher who's really trying to incorporate a lot of, you know, gamification and new things. But I was wondering if you could speak a little bit more about the kinds of things that action research can do. You know, when the last examples do deal with more concrete skills like multiplication or, you know, reading. Do you see a difference between those two?
Yeah. Definitely, like in my school context, the action research can be various. So like we have one related to how songwriting improves students' creativity. So as we know, creativity or empathy is a very difficult to measure in action research. I mean, like if the student write those kind of questions in our action research methods class, they would be reject it because we are not psychologists to measure the empathy or something like that. But we would like to extend the action research towards something like meaningful to the students and to teachers, not necessarily like only focusing on knowledge and skills, but other things. Like recently I worked with one teacher and he said like, well, I'm wondering whether like visual thinking routine improve social disposition and thinking dispositions of the students, of high school students. So usually we talk about like, how would you say like work disposition, like performance. Now I would like to see whether like that those visual thinking routine really have the social disposition or thinking disposition. So we tried that one out and like we did the survey. We would like to do like apply some visual thinking routine in the classroom, and we would like to see whether it's really change or shift the dispositions, like in students. So it could be something like that. So it's more about disposition, like small group instruction. It can be something for like the knowledge and the skills, and like some research totally for teachers. Like last year, we had one teacher did an action research on the well-being of the teachers, of the teacher. I did an action research on well-being of the students, like by doing journaling to see how it's really improve the well-being. So it can be like in various ways. The focus is that how action research really improve the holistic, the whole child, like the whole students. So that's the
I mean, certainly the good news for those that are in a setting that's all about academics, that's easier to measure.
It's a really easy.
It's easy to design a test about whether or not you know the sevens multiplication facts or the history of the Roman Empire, right? So if you're looking for a master's thesis topic, you might lean in that direction just because your measures might be more valid and reliable than the sort of qualitative data that we would gather for something like empathy.
Yeah, and then we usually triangulate the study. So like we have like different data points like survey, interview, observation, pre-test, post-test on together, not just like one data point. And we usually tell teachers like we need to be very cautious about the like assumption, because it can be a really like a lot of extraneous variables. Yeah, like how you say extraneous variables. Yeah. So yeah. And it's very empowering and powerful in a way that like you have a small group of like educational researchers, like small pilot group, and those people is gonna be like a partner, like partners to other teachers. So like it's like more like a snowball. You start from like smaller group of 5 teachers, and now we have another like 10 teachers who join the group, and then they become the bigger group, and that's how we change the school's culture on innovation. Yeah, I hope that's.
Go ahead, Marina.
Okay, thank you. That was very interesting. So I'm thinking, do you sometimes have to educate teachers first how to do research? So if a teacher hasn't been through a master's degree, they may not necessarily know, like, for example, you talked about trying. Oh, yeah. So some teachers maybe don't necessarily know about it. So do you as the leader give an introductory session first and then kind of let them go and work on the project?
Yeah. So like in our school, we have what we call it innovation team. So one part of the innovation team is about action research. So we have a couple of like core groups, like we have 3 of us as a core group. And then we said like any teachers would like to try out new things can join the action research group. So Jonathan, the teacher that we just listened to, he joined the action research group. And then we have around like 3 session, like small session about like how to write an action research and how to collect data, so on and so forth. So like I personally worked with him from like working with him from the action research question to like how to design the survey, how to like analyze the data, how to do the presentation. So it's more like a coaching at the beginning. So and then from that now he's very like confident. Now this year he's going to coach other teachers, but we're gonna have like a really small training session, let's say like that, but not so complicated or so academic. So like the
Not my
way
class.
not his class. So it's more like a very simple, like, okay, you have this songwriting idea, and now you have like, this is some crash course about action research, like independent variable, dependent variable, and this is the template. Can you write an action research question? And then the survey, what's your ideas? How do you want to measure, so on and so forth. And we work together to create a survey. I came to his class to do observation, record the data, and like use the different data points. We have interviews, so on and so forth. But it's more like a coaching. As you say, you would like to, is that you would like to create that community?
Yes.
So we start from what we call it ambassadors, or sometimes like innovation team, very small. And then we just snowball. So yeah.
I have more questions, but I don't want to hold the time. If anybody else would like to ask before me, I can wait.
Go for it. I see
No
Paul
problem.
saying, do your question first.
Oh, yes, super. Okay. So then I'm thinking logistically, so for the project, for this team collaboration to go ahead, it will need some kind of support from the administration, from leadership. And so is it necessary for the leadership to allocate, say, an hour? How often? Or is it something that teachers do in their own time?
Well, from my experience, I think, of course, it needs the support from the administration. Like, okay, this is what we are going to do, and this is our like the vision in the future, and then that interest groups going to meet. But apart from their planning time, so they don't need to be like in the big meeting or conference room or something like that. However, at the end of last year, for example, we organized what we call it a sharing experience, or like a symposium, where we create like different classroom and like different like workshops or like presentation, and the whole teachers, like whole staff, went to different rooms to learn about them. So it's more like a party symposium. So we even invited a DJ to come. So it's like celebrate your achievement, like really showcase your innovation. And in that way, people are more fascinated. They may not enroll in this year to be an action researcher. However, they see the innovation coming around. So they say like, I know these teachers did something like that last year. I would like to do the same thing. And I could see that by going to classroom, and then could see more of the innovation going on by learning from the other. But of course, administrators need to support them.
And would there be any financial compensation for the kind of the extra work that teachers are putting on themselves, or not?
We had compensation, not that much, for last year. This year we have for the learning partner, but not for the new action researcher. So last year we had for the new action researcher because they put a little bit of investment. And this year we said like action researcher can be part of your professional goal. So like, so like we have like what we call a professional goal, like inquiry question as a professional goal. However, if you want to do to convert your inquiry question into an action research questions, then you can work with your learning partner. So in that case, if it's your professional goals, then we don't give you compensation because that's your responsibility. Yeah. But the learning partner does have the compensation. Yeah.
And what was my last question? Oh yeah. Do you have to, are you selective in who's kind of allowed to go ahead with their project? Does it go through some kind of filtering process or not?
No.
You
We
don't.
really respect the teacher's innovative idea. And what we would like is to leverage them. And then also like for learning partners, the one that were the action researcher last year, we also provided some training about coaching, like assets-based coaching and stuff like that, the same way that we did to the new action researcher. So we try to, like strength-based coaching strategy. So we try to get their strengths and leverage them instead of say like, oh, okay, your idea is not innovative or something like that. Yeah, we'd ask them to reflect on their idea to see whether it's innovative or not. Yeah.
And my last question is, your teacher collaboration, is it school-based or is it across schools, different schools?
It can be both. So we have a school-based and also we have a partner schools too. So we have a action research partner schools teachers and also like separate school-based. Yeah.
Very interesting. Thank you. Thank you so much.
And just a little addition to that, I think if you're publishing a paper, doing a study that's going to lead to something maybe for a university, then yes, all of that permission business becomes much more important. And, you know, internal review board is not to say that we're talking about teachers doing something creative and seeing if it helps kids, I think, in her context, and not publishing it for a master's thesis or something.
We would like to see the innovation happens in every classroom. That's our vision. So that's why we think that like action research really helps to communicate that idea or like spread that idea to other teachers to create some kind of culture in the classroom.
And I just thought of another question. So if I have a research project in mind that would be applicable to my classroom, my teaching, am I working alone on that? Because you mentioned a learning partner, but would that person necessarily be researching together with me, or their function is kind of different? Or is there a group of people collaborating on the same research question?
It really depends. In our context, we have like individual teachers can do an action research, and then the learning partner will have them to like, how we say, to develop the research questions, and then how to like kind of guide them, like collect data and like how to do.
So they're more experienced, basically.
Yes,
the learning partner.
yeah. And at the same time, they are working together, not like a hierarchy thing. And at the same time, they also have an instructional coach to work with them, or the director. So really like 3 of them work together, like in collaboration.
And can you talk a little bit about the time that's involved in this, like time frame, the frequency of meetings?
It really depends on the teachers and also the learning.
They can decide for themselves,
they
basically.
can decide for themselves, yeah. So like with Jonathan, for example, we met each other probably 4 or 5 times over 1 year. Yeah, so not that much, but we communicated with each other. We just take advantage of like lunchtime to have like 10-minute chat or something like that. Yeah, so. Any other question? I think Paul has some questions.
Yeah, Paul had a hand up
So
earlier.
yeah.
I had a comment. I took my hand down because Marina, you're asking all the right things that I tried to summarize a little bit in the chat. And it's really relevant for you because you're looking at doing this right now, I know. All of those things are going to differ from one place to the next, I assume. I've taken those of you who have worked with me, I have some visiting scholars here online. You know that I'm sort of a let it bubble up kind of process person, as opposed to having too many processes. So I would be, if we were like doing some sort of panel, I'd be the guy who's like, well, yeah, we don't really do too much training. Yeah, well, we don't really have that.
Yeah,
But-
yeah.
But I just had a really nice example today of someone who benefited from the school culture that gets created when you're having projects like this. She wasn't one of our official people, because we do have a vetting process like you asked about, Marina, because we were paying a stipend for people to be involved. So she didn't ever apply, but she did benefit from this just general culture of the way she described it was so important. It's space to try things out.
Mhm.
And then the feeling that the administration has your back,
Mm.
right? You have the green light to try stuff out. That's super, super important, because if you don't feel like you have that, you're not going to take many risks at all. And then we're just going to keep doing the same things that we've been done. Some of those things are good, some of them less good. But it certainly doesn't bring on much change if we don't ever stray from what we're currently doing. So yeah, I let things bubble up more. T, I'm impressed with all of the processes that you have in place. I benefit from the fact that you're just a room away and we're going to have dinner tonight, and I'm going to ask about more of those things because it's fabulous. And Marina, thanks. You gave us the structure there to walk through, like, what are the big considerations. Very good.
I'm jealous about your
Yeah, like
discussion dinner.
yeah, feel
We'd
free
invite
to
you
reach
if we could.
out.
Yeah.
Marina, feel free to reach out to me, and we can have a quick Zoom or
would-
quick chat,
I would love
and
to.
then I could share you the process from the beginning, because we were like, I was engaged from the beginning and like
Mhm.
coach the whole process. And as Paul said, is the culture is very important. If you see
Mhm.
somebody try out something, it's very important to like, it's like create some kind of motivation for others.
Mhm.
And also the importance of having somebody to bounce back and forth the ideas.
Mhm.
That is really like the teachers know that, like, okay, if I don't know how to like analyze the data, I don't really know how to fresh out my ideas or something, I have somebody.
Do I have time for another question, or is there somebody else? So I'll just wait. Yeah.
Go on, do you have any questions?
I do have one that relates to what Paul mentioned, and relates to administrative support. Given that, teachers are trying things out, and, I think that it creates a great culture, but inevitably some projects will fail, or they won't have an impact on student learning, or they'll have a negative impact on student learning. So then there's two considerations there, right? How do you deal with the sort of the morale of that within the staff, within the school? And secondly, how do you get parents to buy into a system where their child might be negatively impacted or not positively impacted by some of the things that are being done? So have you had any issues with parents, either at LAS or, at ASM?
Yeah, well, actually, yeah, we all also thought about like how to communicate the idea of innovation to parents. So I could see, so for example, like last year, we usually like invite the parents to the final project presentation of the student to like showcase what they learning or something like that. And then this year, we kind of try out something we call it informants. So like parents, instead of going to see the final project, they can see how the students working in the group or like doing learning in the classroom. So in that way, they can see like, innovation is not about the product, it's about the process or something like that. So that's one channel that we could like to a little bit move forward toward that one. And of course, some innovation, some research can fail. Like my previous last year research about improving the students' learning well-being through happiness pocket or journaling. In some class, it failed. In other class, it didn't. Because the thing is that there are so many like variables, and also that's how we do action research, because we would like to see whether it's really work or not. Are there any things that we would like to improve or something? Like, for example, in Jonathan's songwriting, we realized that the reason why when we look at the data, we didn't see much of the creativity in the data. But we realized that like maybe the surveys are not reliable. And at the same time, maybe the teacher didn't spend so much time on teaching students how to write lyrics or something like that. So that really informed the practice in the future. And that's probably the purpose of action research, is to inform the school, the innovation in the school, to see whether it's really work or not. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't mean that we're not going to try out one more time. Like this year, we also try out journaling for the whole middle school, but like purpose in a different way, so that also, yeah. Thank you for the question.
I think Marina had one
Yeah,
more
I had
question.
if we have time. Just quickly,
We're almost out of time.
Hodder, so we're talking about teachers getting involved in action research. What about leaders? Do leaders typically get involved? Is that also a good thing?
I hope so.
I think that's a good thing. That's a good way. That's really a way that we would like to move forward, because we said that action research is not only for teachers, but also for administrators too. And the first step would be like the administrator buy into this action research thing, to give the teachers support first. And at the same time, we said like, hey, actually we have 9 types of innovation here. So like we have material innovation, so on and so forth. So we have like 9 types of innovation. And one of them like human management or something like that. So that's also ways you can like how to hire good teachers or something like that. What kind of strategy or something like that. So we would like the other people, administrator, to be on board with that. And in fact, this year we have like we have a new initiative. Instead of like people have to develop professional role based on the goals, based on the Renaissance framework or something like that. We ask them to develop an inquiry question as a professional growth. And if some of them would like to do an inquiry question to become an action research question, they can work with a learning partner. So it's more like a gradual process. Yeah. But certainly we should, like.
Thank you. Thank you, Grace. I think so too. I agree with you.
Thank you.
So I might have seen some other hands just briefly, maybe Juan or somebody. Feel free to email us, even if we're out of time now, and we'd be happy to follow up with questions, because we love talking about this stuff. And it's interesting. My answers to some of these questions are so different than T's. So maybe you can get, both sides of the spectrum here if you drop us a line.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Okay, I think the time.
Okay, yeah, thanks T and Steve, thanks Christian, thanks everybody for being here. So nice to see some faces of people that are really quite good friends, and I'm glad that you're here, and others that we might not know. I put both Steve and T's emails. I hope that's okay, you guys, in the chat. Feel free to contact them and continue the conversation that way. Look to the future for other things coming from our research informed schools group here. What's going to be happening soon? I'm sort of coming to the end of the visiting scholars here on campus. I have a couple to pick back up who are no longer with us on campus, but we'll get them a spot down the road. And then I do actually have some resident scholars who have agreed not just to present their work at LAS, but to present it in this forum. So that would be teachers, just like T has been describing, who have done some sort of project and are willing to share it in this group. So you can hear from some real people and ask these same questions of people who have gone through the process. So yeah, so super, all of you who are here, thanks for the messages in the chat, all of the conversation. Marina, make sure that you write to T right away, and Steve, and get connected. Yeah, and just hello and thanks to you all for coming.
Thank you. How
Kunali,
do I
good to
save the
see you, by
chat?
the way.
Save the chat.
How do you save the chat?
I don't know. Abby from ECIS, is there a way to save the chat and send it with the
Yeah, I this chat saves when I close the meeting, so I can send it to you.
Ah,
Perfect.
brilliant. Okay.
Do that,
I thought
thank
I
you.
was doing something wrong.
No, okay.
Okay, thanks so
And
much. It
thanks,
was very
thanks
interesting.
ECIS for working with us to host all of these. It's really wonderful.
No problem.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you,
Thanks.
everyone.
Thank
Okay.
you.